All right, guys. Yesterday we left off talking about checking accounts. So today, let's get into it. When it comes to banking, what do you need to know about checking accounts? Well, checking accounts have evolved over the last, especially in the last 20 years with the invention of the debit card and banks trying to become more creative in their ways of reaching young spenders of money, in particular savings accounts and things like that. But let's talk about the basic idea: checks. Checks are very difficult to fill out. It's an art to it. One of the things about a check is you do have to be able to write in cursive for a check. I know a lot of banks will take them even if you print on them, but your signature must be cursive. I just want to highly recommend all of you practice your writing your name in cursive. You really need to develop a strong cursive signature. Also, as I've always said this, you should be able to write in cursive. Cursive, if done properly, is about twice as fast as printing, and if you practice properly, it is legible. In other words, you can read it. Um, I will just say that people of my generation, writing in cursive is standard. If you meet someone over 40 years old that prints, chances are they don't have a very strong education. Um, by the way, writing in cursive is a mark that you have been educated. That means it tells people that you meet or come in contact with that you are educated. Um, just bear that in mind when you guys don't bother with cursive. I know that you guys live in a text world where you just simply type in with your thumbs on your phone or you send a message through your computer. That's all well and good and great, fantastic. But, if you're buying a car, you're going to have to sign your name in cursive in about a half a dozen places to buy a car. To cash a check that someone has written you, you'll have to write in cursive. So keep that in mind. Learn how to write your signature in cursive. And honestly, if you truly want to impress people, develop a good cursive handwriting. Practice it. It's worthwhile to do so. Also, it's worthwhile to learn how to read it as well. It also makes it harder for people to steal your information and to forge your name. So keep that in mind as well. When it comes to banks and looking at checking accounts, there are many different types of checking accounts. Checking accounts are basically set up with several ideas. You put your money in the bank. From that checking account is considered your working account. That is where you put money in. That is where you pay bills from. A lot of companies charge you for checking. So you have a monthly or yearly fee. Some banks offer you free checking for X number checks. Um, a lot of places have digital checks. Most of my bills are paid through my checking account through automatic checking, which basically what they do is they send a digital check to my bank, and my bank then sends them the transfer of money from my account to pay that bill. Um, Writing an actual physical check, most people don't do that very often. I write about maybe 3 a month, 2 or 3 checks a month. That's it. There's only a few bills that I have that I actually write a check for. Sometimes when I don't want to give someone my credit card, I will write them a check. It is a physical copy of a document where I promise to pay them X number of dollars. It's like an official IOU that they can take to my bank or their bank and in exchange will receive money for. Just remember that if you don't have money in your checking account, you can't spend it. So if you have only $20 in your account and you write somebody a $25 check, you will get what's called a overdraft, which comes with penalties and fines. So keep that in mind as well. You need to keep an accurate record of your check. But most everybody starts off with a checking account as an adult so that they can put their paychecks in and they can pay their bills from that account. Remember, checking accounts are your working account, or at least that's the standard idea. Today, however, Many young people are using savings accounts. Now, what are cool about savings accounts? Saving accounts allow you to put your money into the account and save it. You can transfer money into this account, and what the bank does is they, for most accounts, have for unlimited withdrawals to be able to take money out of the account anytime you want to. Usually requires that you keep a minimum balance. I have one of these accounts. It requires me to keep $250 in my account. Without a penalty. So if I say I have $5,000 in my savings account, I can use up to $4,750 of that money as much as I want, as often as I want, without any issues. However, leaving the money in there for longer amounts, what does savings accounts do? Well, a bank takes money that you have put in savings accounts, and they take that money and they use it to finance your neighbor's house, the guy down the street's new car, the guy who just bought a new lawnmower to mow his yard with and wanted to borrow the money from the bank. The bank uses that money to loan to other people. In exchange for leaving your money in a savings account, they give you a percentage of the interest. Now, I want you to write this down. Savings account are slow, S-L-O-W, grow, G-R-O-W, grow. They do not grow very quickly. Your money goes in there and sits, and you do not earn a lot for it, but you do earn some. And the way I look at it is every penny that I earn that I didn't have to work or sweat over is a penny that I really appreciate. So you're only earning about 2 to 3% tops. Most banks offer you somewhere between like 1.5 and 2.5% on your savings account. If you find a savings account at 3%, you need to jump on it quick. And get that. That means every year for, let's say you have $1,000 in the bank and you have a 3%, every year that account is going to earn you $30. Now, that amount compounds itself. So if you had $1,000 in the bank and you earned $30, you now have $1,030. Next year, you'll earn $33. Why? Because you earn 3% of the $30. You see how it works? So now you have $1,063. Then the next year, that money increases by another $36. Y'all get the idea? So now you have $1,139 in the account. So your money, you're actually now in 3 years' time, that $1,000 has earned you $130, almost $140, just sitting there doing nothing. You haven't lost any money, you've only gained money. Now, while you've been doing that, the bank has been earning like 15 or 20% from the loans that they have sent out. This is how the bank is able to make money. They make money. They, let's say they loaned your neighbor your $1,000 that you thought was sitting in the bank. They loaned them that money, and the bank has earned 15%. Well, while they're earning 15%, they're going to give you 3% of that for allowing them to loan your money. Now, anytime you need to go get that money, you can go get it because they'll just simply borrow it from someone else's account to pay you back. But as long as you leave that money in there, they're going to pay you X number of dollars so that they can use that money somewhere else, making them money. Remember, this is all about a business. A bank is a business. They're trying to make money. And how do they do that? By loaning people money and collecting the interest. Now, cool thing about savings accounts are you do have access to them. You can add into them all the time. And I do want to say this. This is the easiest way for you to become financially independent. I always tell students this. The number one thing you can do for yourself, and anyone can do it. I don't care whether you have a minimum wage paying job working at McDonald's doing the drive-through window, or whether you are a CEO of a business. You can have a savings account, and anyone can do this. Everybody needs to have a savings account. I like to call it the oh crap fund. It is the money that I have stuck aside in case something bad happens, like, I don't know, COVID-19, where people are out of work for months. Well, how do you survive if you're out of work for months and you're not getting paid? You can't plan on government stimulus packages where they send you money to help keep you. You can't plan on unemployment benefits. These things may or may not be available to you. So what do? Well, you protect yourself by having a savings account. You put money in there. Now, how much money should you have in savings? Well, as I said, anybody can do this. If you want to eliminate stress in your life, you need to have a savings account. And I can promise that every last one of you can be financially independent and secure from major and most disasters in your life if you can put away $25 a week. $25 a week. What does that mean? Well, when I was in construction as a welder, when I left that job, I was making about $28 an hour. So we're talking about less than 45 minutes of my work that week. What I earned for working 45 minutes. No big deal when you consider the amount of hours that I was putting in. So it wasn't a big chunk of my paycheck. $25 a week. Or you want to think about it monthly, $100 a month. What does that do? Well, you're putting in $100 a month into your savings account. Within a year, you have $1,200. Plus interest. The next year, you have another $1,200 plus interest. Within 5 years, you will have deposited well over $7,000 in your savings account plus interest. Within your 6th year, you will pass the $10,000 mark. So within your 6th year of putting money in savings, you will have $10,000 sitting in savings. Now, if you are a college student and you have just gotten out of high school and are going to college, you're going to be in college for about 5 years. If you take the money that you get for your graduation presents, in case you didn't know this, when you send out announcements that you're graduating, a lot of people like to send you money. Obviously, enjoy some of it, but take a big chunk of it and stick it in a savings account. Also, if you have a job, try to put in $1,200 a year. When you graduate college, you will have $10,000 in your savings account. What does this mean for you as a young person? Well, you guys are working on your budget projects this week. This means you're going to be able to get an apartment. You're going to be able to pay the first month's rent, the last month's rent, all the deposits that are required to be able to move out. Remember, moving out of your house just isn't getting in the car and finding a place and moving in it. You got to start up everything, and everything costs double. So, to turn on the power, you're going to have to give them a $200 deposit to cut on the electricity in your apartment. Why? Because a lot of people just leave town and don't pay their bills. So the power company wants to make sure that they've got some money to guarantee that they cover the expenses you ditched. So they require young people, especially young people, to pay deposits in order to start up services. These are monies on top of the bill. So just keep that in mind. Well, if you've got $10,000 in a savings account when you graduate college, then you have $10,000 to help you get started on your own. Also, when you take money out of your savings account, let's say you have a car and the transmission goes out and you've got to take $2,000 out of it to fix your transmission, you need to be working that next year on putting that money back. Honestly, putting in $25 a month, even after you reach the $10,000, that's your starting point. Try to get $10,000 in savings. Once you get to that point, you have a nest egg to handle most of the problems that will hit you. The refrigerator dies. Refrigerators cost $1,000 to $5,000 depending on how fancy you want. Transmissions on your car. Engine blows. You want to buy a new car. Down payments. All of these things can come out of your savings. This is money that you have in case you want to do something. You want to buy a house? You need to have a savings account. Why? Because you're going to have to put down 10% to buy a house. These are huge. So savings accounts, these are the gold standards. Everybody needs a checking account because that's your working account. Today, a lot of people, a lot of savings accounts come with a debit card, which allow you to use your savings account instead of a checking account. I actually know people that don't have a checking account. They only have a savings account, and they use their savings account as their working account. That's fine. However, you need to have a separate savings account. You need to put money aside. If you have money in your pocket, you'll spend it. If you have money in your working account, you'll spend it. So by having a separate savings account for savings, you are protecting it because it's not the money that you normally are using. Out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. But $25 a week, and I would encourage you to do it putting in $25 a week for the rest of your life. That way you have more than enough. Now, obviously, if you get more money, let's say you are making $5,000 a month, then what is $10,000 going to be the amount of money you need to have in savings? The rule of thumb you should keep in mind for savings, how much money to keep in savings. You should have, make a goal of $10,000 to get started. Get that $10,000 in there. But as your expenses go up, figure 3 months of living wage. In other words, how much money do you need to continue to pay all your bills for 3 months? So if you need $5,000 a month to pay your bills and to do everything you need to do that you have become accustomed to, your house payment, car payments, food, everything, you need 3 months. 3 months of livable income in savings. These are just tips to help you be financially secure. So let's talk about that one more time. How much should you start with? $10,000. How can you get there? $25 a week, $100 a month. And seriously, if you work at McDonald's, you can squeeze that out, especially if you're still living at home. So it's not a big financial burden. And when you guys start getting real paying jobs, $25 a week is not that bad. Okay, so really make a goal of putting $25 a week, $100 a month in savings. Once you get a real job, a real career, as your expenses go up, you should keep 3 months of what it costs you to live in savings. So if you need $5,000 a month, the new amount is not $10,000 in savings, it's $15,000. I and my wife, we live off of about $7,000 a month. For us, I should have $21,000 in savings. Why? Well, if I lose my job, something like COVID-19 happens, or if I was to get fired, you're not going to find a new job immediately. With your unemployment checks plus your savings, 3 months of income in your savings account can give you maybe anywhere between 3 to 6 months of livable income that will allow you a half a year to find a new job making what you were making or more. So that immediately takes a lot of stress off of you of what to do if you get laid off, or if something like COVID-19 happens, or if you get fired. All the possible scenarios out there. Savings accounts are so important to have, and it is the first step to being financially independent and secure. Last tip. When you're looking at savings accounts, they are the number one way that you can offset problems that are going to arise. Most people in their marriages and in their life, money is probably the number one stress factor on a relationship, on a marriage, on individuals who are trying to do their jobs and simply get on with their life. Matter of fact, when you consider the fact that most all marriages, unfortunately, 50% end within the first 5 years, because of incompatibility, most of that incompatibility is brought on by stresses about money. A savings account, with a well-funded savings account, you can eliminate the majority of emotional issues that you're going to have in your relationships with one another. So my number one tip here is have a good savings account. If you're prepared for catastrophes, then you are able to survive them with less stress. Less stress in your life. Honestly, look at most of the people that you know that are married. They are stressed out, and most of that stress is because of money issues. Never having enough, never being prepared for bad things happening. With COVID-19 and the uncertainty of the future markets and stuff, a savings account is probably the number one thing that most people wish they had. So take my advice. Start planning for a savings account. Anytime an aunt or a grandparent gives you money, it's never too early to start with a savings account. I started my daughter with a savings account when she was 14. By the time she was 16 years old, she had several $1,000s already in her savings account. And this was just from her doing odd jobs, cat sitting. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that's how my daughter made her money through up till she got into college. She went by and watered people's plants in their homes and fed and changed the litter boxes for their cats while they were away for vacation. She had about 7 or 8 little old ladies that called her all the time, and she'd get paid $50 to basically clean the litter box and feed the cat over the weekend. So, it doesn't matter how little money you make. If you have the ability to save any of it, this is the great way for you to start ensuring that when you become an adult and when you are an adult, that you are going to have your problems well in hand because you're going to have this savings account, this oh crap fund there to protect you when things go wrong. When I'm looking and doing marriage counseling and stuff for people, a savings account, believe it or not, would solve about 80% of the problems I hear. Just having that security so that it's not stressing on the relationship. I can't even begin to put a value on it. So make sure you keep this a rule of thumb. Everybody should start out with a basic goal of trying to get $10,000 in savings. You can do that by how? Putting $25 in a week or $100 a month into savings. In almost any job that you have, you can do this. 2, once you get your initial $10,000, what should your savings amount that should you keep on hand? 3 months of income. So you need to start thinking about how much you, or if you have a wife or or a husband, how much you and your spouse need to survive for 3 months. If it's $5,000 a month, then you need to raise that $10,000 to $15,000. If it's more than that, you need to raise it to more than that. What do you do with money beyond that point? Well, that's where we get into investments, and we'll talk about that later. But remember, your savings account is the number one way for you to start your path to financial independence. And that's my time for today. So checking accounts, they are your working accounts. You can write a check out of them. You can pay your bills. It's where you deposit your paycheck. That's the account that you generally work out of. Why don't you want to work out of a savings account? You can, because they give you debit cards. They do allow for you to change money from hand to hand out of a savings account. Because if you're using your savings account as a working account, you won't save. That money will disappear. So if you're using a savings account as your work account instead of having a checking account, make sure that you have another savings account in order to have an actual separate deposit of money. Remember, out of sight, out of mind. If you put that money in savings, then it's only there if you need it, not there because you want it. So just remember that. One of the great things is most people have their checking accounts and their savings accounts linked, where they can transfer easily money from their savings account into their checking account when they need it, and vice versa. But by having it separated, keeps you from being tempted to use it. Remember, you need 3 months worth of income stored up in savings. And if you do that, I promise this will end so much of your stress in your adult life. So those are my tips for today, and checking and savings. Let's get started to financial independence. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a great day.